right, Alyssa, thank you. So in order to get things moving here, and Alyssa, I appreciate that update from Madam Chief of Staff, Laura Solano, that, and I'm sure there will be some interest in terms of reviewing the job description and giving some input. But at this point in time, I invited Michael and Jamie, and Velma's pinch hitting for Jamie to be able to kind of visit a little bit, answer any questions in terms of the presentation that had been given to this group on something to do with nuclear, the nuclear option that was not considered to be really a good option, if I remember right. So actually, both of you, we're going to take about 15 minutes, and then we're going to move on to our 3 committees that we have and give each one of them a chance to talk about what's taking place. But Michael, Velma, go ahead.
So I just want to start with where we left off.
Yeah, and you can come up here and stand up or sit it down. Pull up to the table, whatever. There's another chair here, just so on the screen that people can see you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I can move down.
Yeah, they could see you there.
Yeah.
And Mike, I have to apologize. I called you Tom when you came in.
There's Tom.
I know I've known Mike for years.
He's got more whiskers than I have. That's okay. So I want to start where we left off. And that was last December when Jamie and I were here and we just gave the presentation. That's when we asked the group here we asked for your recommendation to go for a nuclear-free Pueblo. And so there were some questions and answers there at the time. And so my recollection is that we were going to leave it to, as a follow-up with any questions, everyone that was on Zoom, whatever thoughts or discussion you might have had in the meantime, to spend part of this time just with any questions that you might have.
but really it's back on us for any of us that were involved with the presentation. Any questions, or if you have any updates, have you given any other presentations and had different feedback, or you could share that with us too. But otherwise, for some of you, we're not necessarily in on that, some of the new members, but.
Right. And we did have we were thinking about what could we ask besides just talking, what could we ask the commission to think about doing? And so we also prepared a draft. It's an early draft of a possible resolution that we might consider. And so when we get to the end of the question and answer, we can talk about that.
Okay, so if everyone on the Zoom, if you weren't able to hear Velma, that she talked about they're working on a draft of a possible resolution to support their position. And are you looking at for us making recommendations to City Council and the mayor, or are you just looking at this committee?
Well, I think our thinking was to start with, I'll speak up a little louder. Our thinking was to begin with this commission, because that's really your charge, is to really advise the mayor and the council on energy matters. And then how we'd be looking to your recommendations for how to handle it, and to start with your recommendations for how to handle it once you get a chance to think about it.
And actually, when I checked, I wanted to go to present this to the council. When I called to do this, they said, well, you were the first step. This commission is the first step. So this is protocol. We're coming to you.
Okay.
And for you to pass it on.
Did you splice this resolution last time you were here?
No, we just finalized this.
Michael had asked me to email it, and I missed Michael's email. So I have copies here, paper copies, and she scanned it.
So you just handed. We have, I guess, people at the table don't have a copy. So Velma, if you can.
Sure.
Well, I had, I guess, more of a comment after your presentation. You mentioned a lot about water quality. The new ones, those modular nuclear generating stations, from my research, they're mainly going to be cooled with helium on there. Well, this is from you have to remember, I'm saying from my research.
Some Nitrogen.
Yeah.
Well, you can look it up. Well, good. This is great. So we'll be in a great discussion. But as you know, it's almost impossible to cool them by water because they come in on crates.
Yeah.
So, you know, to be able to, you know, just bring them in on crates, and you're going to need a water supply to cool a nuclear generator. The reason I looked it up, I'm from Excel.
Are for those pictures that Martha had that were from the donors. The only problem is that she doesn't know what.
Somebody's not muted, by the way.
Yeah, it was helium cooled there, so that's why I'm really researching.
It's
Say for rain was helium cooled, but I looked it up. You know, we can look it up again.
but for NuScale's model, NuScale each of the different small modular, there are a number of competing companies developing these. The one which made the presentation to the semi-public town hall in July of 2021 was NuScale. NuScale's small modulars are basically light water reactors in a vacuum tube.
Sure.
I jokingly call them nukes in a bottle, but they put these light water reactors 70 feet by 9 feet approximately, manufactured and shipped to the site. And then they line up anywhere from 8 to 12 of them to produce the amount of wattage that's desired. Normally, their model calls for submersing and this is from you can find this on their website. They do a really good job of detailed discussion of their processes. They submerge their small modular vacuum tubes in water normally. That's for the operating cooling. That's separate, of course, from cooling the uranium fuel rods in a separate pool, which is, according to their estimates, about 60 feet deep by at least 70 feet long. When they began to make their presentations to Western states and Western potential customers, they discovered the water issue was kind of sensitive to us out here. And so they have since proposed an air-cooled model, which is even more experimental than their theoretical water-cooled models. So there are some which
I apologize.
There are some
I
that
was
are
referring to like the Bill Gates model.
right.
These new ones.
Well, this is new too.
Well, you just said it was 2021.
Yeah, but it's really Bill Gates's model is a totally different type of reactor, and so NuScale is the first one to get their preliminary license from NRC. They do have the go-ahead to put in an experimental pilot plant in Idaho at the nuclear research facility there. That one is anticipated to cost $3 to $5 billion just by itself, and they haven't started building it yet. They expect their first pilot plant to be ready about 2029, 2030, something like that. But that, so that's the cooling thing.
I just brought it up for discussion.
Well, I know, but it's important to discuss.
When somebody comes in and gives a presentation, and they just mention one model, you know, it'd be kind of like solar. Like if a solar person was here to work for the solar company, and they were comparing the new solar panels with those. So please, I understand you're talking about that one. I brought it up for the group.
No, and again, I think, you know, and again, you're here to get feedback from the ones that
Sure.
are the presentation.
Sure, and
So I
that's,
think it's appropriate to, but also I think at the same time before we, I do know just from my experience as an elected official that before we bring this forward or even we decide on it, probably I know elected officials are going to have a presentation from the ones that propose doing this.
sure.
And I don't even know who that is. Did somebody do that for the commissioners?
What, yes, the commissioners, well, the U.S. Department of Energy and primarily NuScale, because they're the furthest along with their experimental plans, are going around the country making sales pitch to communities.
Right.
And the county commissioners, Chris Wiseman and Garrison Ortiz primarily, were discussing energy possibilities. And so they
Were they the
they
ones that
made
invited them?
connections, and so they invited, and it was actually quite a big deal. The Secretary of Energy appeared in by video. Will Tour from the governor's energy office appeared, and the executives from NuScale came, and one of the top members of the nuclear industry group.
So they all chimed in and were
They
part
all
of it.
chimed in,
And
and
it
they
was a
had,
Zoom meeting, like what?
well, it was live, but it was hybrid.
But they, okay.
Yeah, it was hybrid,
So-
and although it was theoretically a public meeting, it was announced extremely briefly, if at all, on the calendar, and then put out by invitation.
Yeah.
So the live meeting was, the hybrid meeting was invitation to business community and other people.
Sure.
And then it made the newspaper, and that's when we began to get concerned about it, because it was really, obviously we feel it's a bit of a one-sided sales pitch.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And again, just to be clear, in terms of trying to be for objectivity purposes, and if you want groups to endorse yay or nay, I think it's only fair that they have to be able to hear.
Sure.
The closest thing that I've heard from even another option was just what Edgy brought up right now, that I wasn't aware of.
Right.
And I didn't listen. I don't know how many of our group actually participated, because I didn't know about it. Like you said, it wasn't very public.
Right.
And so if we were to do something, which I would recommend, because I think we should take a position or make a recommendation at least to the elected officials, but I can almost assure you that they're not going to chime in and make a decision unless they hear two sides of it. But it would certainly help if it started with us. Now, whether or not that's the rest of the group feels that, I'm open for, that's just my opinion, that I don't think we can move it forward to the elected officials without them having an option to hear two sides.
Yeah, the program Edgy's, that's right. And the program that Edgy's talking about is Bill Gates has a contract in, I think, Wyoming, right? He's in Wyoming.
Sure,
yeah,
you know, where
with one of the,
what's state or and there's other. I mean,
and there are other.
I just brought it up for discussion. I'm not supporting or not supporting anything.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that it wasn't, that all of them weren't helium cooled. I misunderstood you. I got the impression you were saying that all the small modulars were helium cooled.
Right. It's just when Mike and Jamie were here, they all, one of their big points is the water issue.
Right.
And so I just wanted to remind everyone that's not necessarily these type. That's all I was doing. We want it to be you know, the most modern. I mean,
Sure,
some of the things we're talking about next week they're changed now
sure.
because the new technology is coming out.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a water issue though, in
Even
all
with
cases,
those,
because you have to store
You have to
The spent
store the
rod.
cooling rods. Yeah,
in water, in 60 meters of water.
after
Yeah.
they're expelled, after
Yeah.
they're done in
About-
30,
yeah.
40 years. Yeah.
no, about, I'm sorry. About every,
We're just talking.
about, well, I know,
Go
but it's important to talk accurately and for the
So-
fuel rods in just about all of the small modulars that have been proposed, they have to be changed out every 1 to 2 years because they're smaller units, so they use up the fuel more rapidly.
Oh, so the fuel only lasts 2 years.
A year or two, yeah.
I see, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then there they go into the big giant swimming pool for 5 years. And then they get taken out and, well, of course, their new ones are being added every couple of years, but after 5 years, they come out and then they go into big stainless steel lined cement containers or cask, as they're called. And those are stored on site, and they're stored on site in perpetuity. Right now, virtually all of the waste generated from nuclear energy is stored where it's generated because we don't have a national storage site.
Yeah, and I just brought something up just out of curiosity.
Yeah,
Department of Energy lifespan for the nuclear reactors go up
40
to
years.
almost 10 years. So, you know, but anyway, I'm just trying to add.
yeah, they change them out during operating. Even the big conventional nuclear reactors change their fuel rods out with some regularity. They have to change them out and store them. And that's one of the, even in the more advanced models, one of the big vulnerabilities is the water storage, the storage pools for the fuel rods.
The spent.
Uses spent fuel rods, right?
Good, thank you.
So let me, Bell, excuse me.
Sure.
Let me just
Get started with this.
suggest, and any of the ones that are involved with the meeting, whether you're part of the board or not, I just want to state that this is a very important issue, I believe. And I don't think it's something that anyone's going to resolve here one way or the other in a week or two or a month or two. What I'm proposing is that, you know, we did give an opportunity to hear a perspective. I think we need to get another perspective from whether it's the ones you're talking about, whoever. I'd like to keep it, certainly let people know about it, but we do a Zoom thing. We don't need to have the Secretary of Energy for the I don't want it to be private. I want certainly people to be aware of it.
Yeah.
If they can Zoom in. I'm not looking to move it to the convention center at this point in time, but maybe sometime down the road. I mean, if we're really going to take a position on this, I just want to, on behalf of the elected officials, on behalf of all of us, to make sure that we've had a good understanding of what's out there.
Sure.
And, but I do think it's very important because somewhere in the future, we're going to be making decisions as a community, as a state and a country in terms of how we move to non-fossil fuels and renewable energy. So at this time, it's kind of like to end the discussion so we can move on with our committees. But I want you to know that you're always welcome here, just like Tom has been. Michael, you don't have to be here just for that, or you're welcome to Zoom in or be in person.
Yeah.
But I would appreciate any input you could give it, helping us figure out who that other party would be, if you would be willing to help with that.
Sure.
And I don't expect you to call and invite them, but maybe at least let us know what the avenue is, and then we can have staff from the city work at doing that. But for the committee members, am I in the wrong direction, or do you want to get another perspective?
I think it's worth getting another perspective. I guess the other thing that, at least what I'm thinking right now, is it may be a little premature. My understanding is this technology is still quite a ways away from being commercially viable.
Right.
And I think we're going to see a lot of changes in the coming years about battery storage and things like that. But in order to have an effective power system, there has to be some way to have dispatchable power. Now, I'm hoping that nuclear is not the best option for that, but I don't, so far, I think it's hard to say whether batteries and pumped storage and other things like that will provide that necessary dispatchable power in order to balance out all the wind and solar. So, I think as we get closer to where, hey, there is a technology that's viable and it might be something that would be put in Pueblo, I think that would be the time for us to take a position. But to just say no nuclear when it's not really a viable option yet, and we don't know what the alternatives are yet either.
But I think, I think on behalf of what was represented by Velma and Jamie and Michael, who they're representing, this was not the final word, because even today you talked about things are already changing, and you brought it up, they're changing. But I do think for even us to move forward, even to be thinking about it, we need another perspective. We're not going to make any, like I said, this isn't a decision that we're going to make or the elected officials are going to make anytime in the near future. But I would like to know a little bit more about both sides. It doesn't have to be a big public performance. Like I said, we don't have to invite the governor and all that too. But if we can get another 15-minute, 20-minute presentation, basically what you did from another perspective, just to kind of see how that's evolving, what direction it's going, I think it would be worth the time to do that over a period of several months from now.
Yeah, but I like what Alan suggested. As you can imagine, we were talking about low income utility bills. We're talking about buildings, this building right here, that's costing the taxpayers lots of money.
Right.
It's endless of our responsibility. And so when we take this issue up, as it becomes more, it comes out, and then, that may be a year away, but a lot of things could change. For us to put in some sort of work, spend that time, that means some city buildings are going to be not getting the needs they need, or some of the policies for the state and the federal will not come from us to the city to make decisions on, and things like that.
You mean in terms of time that you have to commit to?
For us to work on things.
Okay, again, just to be respectful.
Yep.
And again, you represent people in our community and beyond, but at the same time, if this is something our group feels like it's something that we put on the back burner and don't need to worry about for a while, that's your decision as a group. But I just want to be respectful to you that we're paying attention to what you said.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere down the road, we need to have another perspective. And I think we all can acknowledge just what you said, that the technology is still being defined, and what's going to be, to say totally that maybe this is not an option somewhere in the next 10 years, 15 years. I guess it's pretty premature for us to say that, but I still like to get a perspective.
One thing I might add, if it's okay, I think it would be worthwhile to reach out to the county commissioners, though, in the near future, because it's unclear to me whether they are proponents of it or not. Initially, I think they came out as proponents, and then at least Chris Wiseman stepped back and said, no, that's not really what we want. So I don't know where the county commissioners truly are on this. And I think that would be good to know whether they're actively pursuing this or they've dropped it, or kind of what theirs.
I think they're panic a little bit about taxes and revenue and looking for an alternative to take the place. Because when they shut down the plants, they're looking, they have some kind of a commitment for so many years that they'll still get that revenue. But I think they're looking at the long run. I mean, that's what their responsibility is, to look how they can finance government. And so I think part of it was that it was something that was on the table. Yeah.
And I think if you're one dimensional and you're only worried about financial stuff, this would be a great idea, because it's a boondoggle, right? And if you're concerned about the health of your community, not so good.
Yeah, we talked about it too. Even if right now there was these units available, a lot of states won't let you bring them through it. So if they're being made in Nebraska and we want one, and they can't come to, how many states are going to say, Oh yeah, just drive those nuclear rods down and go set it up in Pueblo.
As a matter of fact, the Bill Gates venture, right, is being delayed because they get their nuclear fuel rods from Russia. Okay, so we've talked.
Okay, let me have Michael chime in and then we're gonna move on.
So right after the meeting when Jamie and I made our presentation, we brought up the document that Commissioner Ortiz sent to the PUC. Everyone on this commission should have received that. To recall, it was like a 30-page. I forget the title of it.
What was that email to us?
Or was this part of the Black Hills ERP stuff, or they were in Excel?
It was part of Excel. It was part of Excel, but
Okay, yeah.
Commissioner Ortiz, he basically leaned toward nuclear. He was a proponent of nuclear. If you read basically what it's saying,
He's no longer commissioner, correct?
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When's
he's
his-
chair. He's chair.
Oh, I thought his
Couple more years.
commission ended. I'm sorry. I'm getting pretty wide. Okay, sorry.
so anyway, if you didn't see it, we'll get the email out to you again.
Okay.
Because that's a good starting point. And your suggestion, Alan, is great. So I'd say talk with Commissioner Ortiz.
Yeah.
He might have some suggestions to talk with.
So again, you have representation on this group because there's members here that are part of your group. So we'll keep this in the forefront. And but I do appreciate you taking the time. And thanks for the initial presentation. And you're welcome to stay. You don't have to run off. And Velma, you can go out this door. This is,
Okay.
yeah. I didn't know there was a door there. Came in like, holy cow. So
I would ask you guys to maybe stay and listen to some of the things we're going to talk about from a policy.
yeah,
standpoint.
absolutely.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk to y'all and Michael asking me to step in. That was, and I appreciate that a lot.
Okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you.
Thanks.
And we're going to move on to the subcommittees that we basically kind of re-identified the last meeting. And since then, I think all three of them had meetings. And so two of them have titles. Ken, have you got a title for your one?
Well, I think we're
Besides
going to call
policy?
I think we're going to call it energy policy. you know,
Okay,
so-
all right, that sounds
Because that's
good.
what it is.
So
Nice.
that sounds like a
concise.
nice story to the point. So let's start. As far as I'm concerned, except for talking a little bit about what we're going to do for the next meeting, we have some ideas that are on the agenda, things that have been presented that people want to see us have addressed. I'd like to at least maybe take this up to 5 o'clock, and then the last 15 minutes, we'll talk about what's the next agenda looks like, if that you feel comfortable with that. And then we'll try to at least mention what you at the end too. But I want to be out of here by 5:15.
No, I think
So, Edgy,
Are you
I
want to
believe your title, of your committee is Municipal Energy Use and Generation for Infrastructure Operations.
Yes, and it's up on,
Okay.
so everyone can see it. And
So we'll try to divide the time up
yeah,
equally.
we're going to go real fast here.
Okay,
Both Ellen and Dave are going to just briefly talk about some of the things we're thinking on. Why don't you start, Dave, on what your suggestion is?
Well, the biggest thing is to get buy-in.
again, talk is, if I hear that's what we want to talk to is as clear and loud as you can, Dave.
Is to get buy-in and support from people. And it's important to be able to communicate objectives and the why that you want to do something. One of the things I thought is, especially on the individual facilities scattered around Pueblo, that the city has responsible for paying the energy bill every month when it shows up, is being able to point out at your facility, whether it's the fire department or the water department or whatever, is going into there to those folks and being able to personally explain to them, this is why we're trying to do this. And probably the easiest way to make that message is say, individually, you at home, you've noticed your utility bills are going up. It gets a little bit harder to pay them each month. And thinking about ways to be able to save on your energy costs. Now apply that same thinking towards where these individuals are working. And they probably know their facility better than probably anybody coming in and trying to talk to them. But maybe creating a personal opportunity to go in with like a questionnaire or whatever else and say, here's some ideas or some directions to go to think about. And as you review where you work, can you look around and see something, whether it's the lighting or the heating or whatever, but ways that might impact the cost. You might think that individually in your building, your office or whatever else, oh my gosh, it's only here. No, collectively, you add your little bit to the entire city's energy use. And what you do to contribute to reducing that is going to reduce the cost, but also the things that will be brought in within the other objectives of what we want to do to try and reduce those costs, make the city more energy efficient.
Cool. You're up.
Well, I guess I kind of focused on the idea of municipal being the functions of the city, and we used municipal rather than just city to make sure it was clear, like Board of Waterworks, who's separate but closely connected with the city, is also kind of in that same group. Probably two of the largest energy users in the city is the Board of Waterworks for treating and pumping water, and the wastewater treatment plant that's run by the city enterprise for cleaning up the water before it's discharged back to the river. And so it gives us a chance to focus on some really large energy users. And when you focus on large users, you have the most opportunity to make significant savings.
Okay, and then, well, everyone saw the information sent from the Department of Energy on the rebates for commercial property.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just so we don't take a lot of everyone's time, everyone saw that, but you know, there's so much opportunity out there, like we talked before. Sometimes it's hard for us to group when I was on the policy committee trying to look at that. That's where this new person, new job maybe can help, because it's really hard for us to go through all the paperwork, all the legalities, and how do we get these rebates that are available for the city, and how we get them to individual buildings if they need them, and even building new buildings if there's some rebates. But that's kind of where we're at. And other than that, I think we'll turn it over to the next committee, if that's all right.
All right, I believe the next committee I have, Laura, Energy Outreach.
Hi, everyone. So Energy Outreach, we didn't get any takers, so the committee is just me. So I came up with a strategic plan for this committee, which was, there was no conflict within the group. And so I've got 3 major goals for this group and a couple different strategies. The first goal is to provide transparency about the city's progress towards the 100% goal. And it would involve communicating actions and progress to the broader community. And this could take the form of, you know, periodically releasing social media content and or press releases about the progress that the city or the commission has made. You know, maybe thinking like at least 1 communication per quarter. And the second piece of that might be working with Black Hills and Excel to quantify exactly where we're at in terms of our percent renewables and what the anticipated gap is between now and 2035, and make this information publicly available so everyone is transparently on the same page. Another piece of this would be to educate residents, businesses, and organizations about opportunities that save money and promote energy efficiency, electrification, and renewable energy use. And a big piece of this would be providing easily readable and accessible information for the public, ideally in English and Spanish, that could help connect residents and businesses with these types of programs and opportunities. I would, you know, this would likely depend on the capabilities of a new part-time energy coordinator, but building a resource webpage on the city's website that links to a host, that clearly links to a host of all relevant opportunities available right now. including rebates, tax credits, lots of things from the Inflation Reduction Act. And then again, releasing social media content or press releases to make sure the community is aware of these things. And then a third piece is to encourage Black Hills to expand their communications about their programs as well, because I think there's a lot of opportunity for them to expand that activity, including PUC proceedings whenever they make a filing, and to allow people to understand how they can learn more about that filing or comment on that filing. I think expanding that to the public in a more digestible way would be important. And then finally, maybe doing physical workshops that could have high impact. So for an example would be coordinating with the business community to do workshops with tax professionals to help them understand how to take advantage of all these new tax credits and get questions answered directly. And then a regional workshop with energy service providers like weatherization and anyone offering energy relief, to make sure that everyone's aware of what's available, because when they're working with folks, especially underserved populations, we want to make sure that they know which programs they can refer people to so that they're getting the services that they might be eligible for. So that was kind of the overview of what seems potentially feasible at this point in time with limited resources.
Does that conclude your presentation, Laura?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
I actually have a comment.
No, that's all right. I just want to make sure that you have an opportunity today, since we have people present, whether they're members or not, if they want to join your committee. And so before, you have a recruiting opportunity here, Laura. So, but we got a few questions or comments. So go ahead.
I'd like to join your committee.
All right, there you go.
I also, I mean, as you're talking, Laura, about kind of getting this information and doing this outreach with the community. I mean, the mayor came in earlier in this meeting talking about all the complaints that they're getting, and I guess even Steve is starting to get these because he's on this energy commission about the high cost of energy in Pueblo, right?
Actually, the mayor didn't get any. I got him. Okay, so I don't know why. Maybe Alyssa was.
But my point is that number one, people won't have a clue on how to go address this, right? It could be that their homes are just not very energy efficient, or they're using their energy, poorly, or they have a problem with their systems, and then the opportunity that are going to be out there to fix these things with government assistance is going to be tremendous, to drive some retrofits to improve everybody's buildings. And the more we know how to take advantage of this, the better off we are as individuals, as a community. So this sounds great.
Yeah, I'd suggest one thing too, Laura, is the social media. You covered different spots. I think really the local TV news are always looking for stories like this that can get it out to the public. The chieftain's always looking for stories that can help us get up. And I love your idea about Black Hills, working with us to put a piece in theirs, because that bill goes out to everyone, or if they get the email version or whatever. But no, I think that's great. And I think it's a high priority now. I'm getting people, even like we were talking before you came on, about people in the mid-income in the higher ends. I shouldn't say in the high, but more in the mid. They're even having problems with utilities, and some of their family sizes would qualify for some of this from the feds. And the state's still looking. I don't get what the state's doing. They came out with a lot of stuff, but I don't see it on their website yet. So,
Yeah.
Laura, have you identified like any metrics that are fairly easy to track that you could, like show on a dashboard about progress?
Yeah, I think just the overarching goal of where are we at in terms of our grid right now, and how far do we have to go? If nothing else, we could at least kind of be tracking that for our community. but I'm open to other ideas. I think there are a lot of things we could track, but we just want to make sure we have the capacity to do so. And that it's of interest to the community.
Yeah, I didn't know if like, does Black Hills make readily available, like what their generation output is from all their different sources, like annually or something like that?
We know generally at this time what it looks like, but we could ask for a more detailed report and break down by fuel source. They may have to report that to the PUC annually. So
okay.
they should be able to get it for us.
They have to put out a FERC report that lists a lot of that. But it takes some, it's not an easy report to read. Okay, it takes some understanding.
Is that anything different, excuse me, than what San Isabel has to give?
Yeah, we're not regulated by FERC or the PUC, so we do not have to report that unless our members request it. But I have requested it from our generation provider a number of times for different reasons, and easily get it in a nice pie chart. So we could ask for something like that from Black Hills.
They gave us a presentation, but it was really city focused, right? And they're going through their ERP now too, where they've kind of identified that in a high level plan called they're ready for 2030. So,
well, I think I understand that they put out plans of what they're going to do, but I think it's more interesting to track last year how much of the power was generated from wind, how much was from solar, how much was from gas.
Yeah.
So it's actual data, not this. Because I mean, the problem with goals is a lot of times you never reach them. And since nobody tracks what you're really doing, nobody knows that you fail to reach them. So I think it'd be good to see what they're actually doing historically rather than what they're projecting to do.
So any of our guests have any comments or questions?
I just have one. I have several, but I'm not going to do that to you.
Oh.
In 2012, there was a group that put together a sustainability plan for the county. It's 10 years old. I just went through that again this morning in anticipation of this meeting, and I think that it's worth looking at because there were goals and measurements abounding in that. If you get on the internet and look at the county sustainability plan, the city only tiptoed in. They didn't really, I would say, join it per se, but they said, yeah, okay, but they wanted to look at it in the broadest perspective. The plan itself, Laura was a huge helper in that plan because she part of what her salary was part of a grant that was to put that together. That 2012 plan from pages 24 to 36, I think, is the guts of the energy plan. And the new comprehensive plan, the county comprehensive plan, kind of relies on that old plan as the current energy plan for the county. So it's long in the tooth. It needs to be upgraded considerably. And you're starting to do that here. But I would just recommend taking a look at it. I found it very interesting to go back, and even though it's 10 years old, it's not that bad. It's really pretty interesting.
Yeah, Velma.
I might also, as far as existing resources, the XS sponsored community energy planning document is also very good on not just goals and objectives, but some metrics and timelines. And it was an initial round of committee work, and then that was supposed to be followed by ongoing work, but I don't know if it has been.
Yeah, it's
still going. Yeah,
I think you're talking about this Excel Partners in Energy.
Yeah.
They were
And
mandated to PUC, both them and Black Hills, to do more for the
that
lower
initial report is very well done in terms of metrics and.
Is there a summary or a follow-up kind of at the end of this to show what was done, what wasn't done, whatever is in there?
It's in I've only read it online, the Partners in Energy report?
Okay, well, I was going to say the whole sustainability plan.
It's online.
It's online. But was there a
Was there a
There was no
follow-up?
follow-up? No follow-up at all as to who, what, when, where? Okay.
No.
Just one.
Alyssa, can you collect those for us? That's the sustainability plan. And then maybe if we can find out more about this Partners in Excel. I think people in the committee know where these things exist. We just need to get you that information. So if you could send it out to the committee.
So somebody will get that to her?
I can do that for that matter.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're on the shared extranet already, but I will double check.
Okay.
Okay. All right, one last question or comment, Michael?
Yeah, so Laura, I just want to ask, as part of your committee, if you could help the commission with understanding the discernment between clean energy and renewable energy. That would really be helpful for this commission to know. That's it.
I think we know it. I hope we know it.
Laura, any other comments?
No, thank you all for that feedback. I think I just put a comment in the chat though, so I'll say, you know, it might be worth having the city make a formal request of Black Hills Energy and Excel to aggregate their total kilowatt hours and therms as of last year, because what was collected in that report you're discussing is even now outdated, and it was for the county, not the city. And so focusing on city numbers would be very interesting.
Okay. And you did gain a committee member, Ken.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So speaking of Ken, you're on.
Okay, I put together a couple simple foils on this. Can you present those, Alyssa? Thank you. Okay, on this committee, there's Laura, Alan, myself, and Tom Corlett. So we had a meeting, our first meeting we had on Monday, and we talked about a lot of interesting things. But we kind of boiled it down to this, that we want to have policies in these areas about energy efficiency, not only for the city buildings, but for the community, okay? So business and residents as well. Because whenever you experience one of these extreme weather events, heat or cold, then the whole community's up in alarm about their energy bills, right? And if they knew more about how to control these, they might they'll feel anxious because of the money. But I think control is probably the worst thing because they don't know what to do, right? They just want somebody to pay it for them. Renewable energies. We got to get to 100% renewables for the city and the community as fast as possible. And our feeling is the climate crisis is driving all this. I mean, it's a hard thing to say politically, but that's why we're doing this. I mean, we're not making changes because it's a new thing to do. It's because we have to. We want to work with the utilities, but this is more of how to get them to do things for the community that we need to do. So we want to make sure that the investor-owned utilities, Excel and Black Hills, are doing things that are affordable and equitable for customers. So they're not out here trying to build things just to make their investors happy, which they want to do. And ideas like a nuclear reactor sure are appealing because they're billions of dollars, right? But that's not necessarily the right thing to do. And by the way, if any other team member wants to speak up, I'll give you an opportunity. We need to identify the resources that are needed to take these policies forward, right? And I think folks like Andrew, who has started some of the things like the energy performance contracts and the building of fire stations to net metering things. We'd like to kind of institutionalize these in policies. So why don't we go to the next slide? Oh, okay. Before I get in, this is a big. It's hard to read in a graphics. Before I go on to this slide, I guess what I'm saying is that we'd like to execute the necessary resolutions and ordinances and policies in the city to kind of start this process. So that when we go out and build a new building, that it's it's an energy efficient building, that we maybe don't put fossil fuels to be used in that building, for example. Okay, let's go on to this next slide. So this kind of led us to there's a lot of resources out here on these issues. Dave just handed out one here, from a college that did a lot of energy improvement stuff. But what looked interesting to us, there's this institute, Rocky Mountains Institute, that is really looking hard at a carbon-free community, and they have kind of an outline of ways to go about this. So we're going to start looking at that in more detail. Okay, so anybody else on the team have comments?
Why don't you say that the template idea is a good one, because it's been researched. It's not something that we're trying to invent wholly. I brought several templates to the table. There are lots of them, and Laura brought the RMI one, which I think is the best because it's Colorado based. They understand the state issues as well, but it's been researched well in terms of the various areas that you can be involved in. And you don't have to be involved in them all at once. You can get in you can do part of the things and, work on measures and goals in each of the areas. I think it's important probably for everybody to see it and eventually maybe get online to see what RMI is about in terms of helping a community lower the carbon effect and create more energy efficiency. So it's quite a good one. And as a template to follow, it's something I think we would recommend, but I think we need to get into more detail with it along the way.
It's a PDF document. So I'll get Melissa to send it to everybody so you can see the picture. I think the idea from this thing is it's kind of a holistic approach, right? You're not only looking at, one component, energy efficiency of city buildings, you're looking at the whole community. So it's transportation, it's industry, it's everything. Now, we may choose a subset of this to address first, but that concept is out there. So we can use this to kind of understand as a city, how should we operate? Another discussion that we had that I think is important too, is that we want to kind of connect up with the county. Because the county is doing a lot of work in energy efficiency of residents. They have a whole program going. No need to duplicate that.
The weatherization program.
Yeah, the weatherization. We'll probably make contact through the city or the county manager to do that. We also talked about LEED as a scoring mechanism for building improvements. To maybe drive the same thing, but we thought that this RMI was one that we could, since it is Colorado based and it's kind of accomplishing the same thing. Not to say that we still don't want to do leads with buildings, but this is kind of a concept that we'll build on. So.
That concludes
mine.
Okay, any other of your committee members want to add anything?
I think Dave had a question.
Okay.
As you were talking, there's one thing that this kind of falls back into some of our other committees.
Yes.
But I'm wondering at what point that we should get the building department involved in some way to look at are there current code requirements that are going to affect the IRA program, you know, getting money back and whatever, because in some upgrades you do to a house could have an impact on your heating system, your gas-fired appliances and everything else. And I'm wondering if someone, this is my wife, who was the one who brilliantly found this. I'm wondering if there are anticipatory codes that might be impacting some of this stuff that, you know, you might say someone, yeah, you can upgrade your house now and there's just X number of dollars available for it. All of a sudden the building department gets involved and they go, oh no, wait a minute. These other things are going to have to be repaired or fixed, which would that perhaps would come out of the homeowner's pocket or impact that money that would be coming in.
Yeah. So I think, you know, things like you're talking about building codes and all that need to, you know, kind of need to go lockstep with what we were trying to do. You know, how do we change those things? So it would probably have to be, you know, coordinated with the county if we want to do that. And they're not going to be easy tasks, right? So, you know, the other thing about this is our capacity to do things too. You know? So.
Okay. Any comments from the Zoom gang?
I was just going to say that if anybody hasn't tried to, I guess, persuade people about the benefits of updating codes, just get ready. It'll be fun. We're having conversations right now with the building department about the implementation of their updating the International Residential Code, which doesn't apply for all buildings, but it's certainly a subset of what we're dealing with. That they're looking to adopt the 2021 code, and they're already proposing some revisions, not necessarily energy related ones, but just as a heads up that those are always ongoing discussions, and the next round of codes are coming out here. I think that I don't know how fast they have to adopt the 2021 International Building Code, but we're on 2015 now. So they may be trying to adopt 2018 soon, but don't know about that particular measure. So just as a heads up, I know they're looking at some of these codes and adopting them as we go forward.
So Andrew, thank you. And let me just add to that, a number of years ago when Kerry Hart was the county commissioner and was chair, and I was president of city council, they were trying to adopt the international codes. And we got a lot of pushback from the contractors, a lot of pushback because it was going to increase the cost of construction. And so those are factors that enter into this. It's not just what we do internally within government. It's the impact it has on the ones that actually implement the stuff and where they fit into it. So that's going to be quite a task ahead of us. So let me just kind of change now a little bit and kind of take a look at the next meeting coming up. And then I want to give a few minutes to Dave before we adjourn. And we'll have you on the agenda next time because people have a chance to look through this. But I'll let you make a few comments before we leave today. And Velma, you don't have to run off.
Oh,
and
well, chasing me away.
Okay.
No, I've got a note. I appreciate the opportunity, but I've got a meeting.
Okay.
I'm the Zoom host. So
okay, well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. And good evening. On our agenda, we have a few items that have been presented by different members of things that they would like to possible presentations. We certainly have room for the next meeting. If one of those presentations, any preference, number 4 and 5 on our agenda. Well, you're looking at that. Let me just tell you, the first thing that's going to be on the agenda next time will be Public Works will have an opportunity to present about the fire station and the net zero. So that'll be the first thing on the agenda next time, Andrew.
Steve, if I can talk real quick about that. The element that we're bringing to the table here is the very essence of our discussion last meeting, where we were talking about the development of a strategic plan and identifying specific objectives. We are at the place right now where I need a definition for what does net zero mean. Now that's broad. Right? This is a perfect kind of vision shaping role that this commission kind of has. And this is, I'm at this point here where we're at a crossroads and I've got to decide, what does that mean? What energy objectives do we have to meet with these buildings? And how close to zero is zero? So these are the kinds of discussions we want to have. We're going to bring the architect that's doing a lot of the work out on those designs to kind of have some discussion. But if we can, I'll try to keep it in a 15-minute window if that's okay, Steve. But then we'll give you a quick update on the status of the work and then kind of have this specific discussion about this topic. So that was the reason that's being put on.
Okay, so we're looking at this for the next agenda, right?
Yes, sir. Correct.
All right, everybody got that?
Yeah, Andrew,
okay.
Just a reminder, you know that proposed ordinance that we had, I sent you a copy of it. It has a definition from the U.S. Department of Energy. It's really a pretty good, starting fight and seems to, fit the bill. And so you might look at that just between now and when we discuss it more.
There are a number of definitions out there. That's partly why I bring it to this commission so that we can make the recommendation to the mayor to adopt the policy about what does this mean for the city, because it's not just going to be these projects. In the future going forward, what are our objectives going to be?
So,
thank you.
Okay, so let's, if you would work with Andrew in terms of determine what kind of time, because I think this should be a priority. This is a city issue, and that we're here to work with the city and advise. So let's, whatever that takes, let's put that on the agenda, first thing on the agenda. Then you can determine the time that we're going to have. Also, I would like to for sure have maybe just an update from each one of the committees next time. So do you think for the ones that propose these guest presentations, what kind of time are they looking at for these presentations? The ones that are on the agenda.
Yes.
Those are the ones on the minutes from Ken Dante. So
okay.
I think that's the ones that you're looking at.
They're not on the agenda. Today's agenda number 4 and 5. Those are presentations.
I believe, tell me the names that you're talking about. The Arjun, was it the
Yeah, I haven't talked to this Arjun guy.
Okay, so but those are things that we want to still look at that for the future.
Well, a lot of times I was one that recommended, more than a year ago, we need more education in the group. But I'm more for let's try to get some of the business done and not have so many presentations.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of work ahead of ourselves. Unless it pertains to, like Laura gave that presentation on, some of the state rebates and the federal rebates that are going to move us forward, but not someone that's for or against it. That, if we need a definition, but I really think we got a lot of work ahead of us, unless it's really something that we feel is an education breakdown in our group.
Well, again, this is our commission's decision. We just wanted to make sure that we brought those forward because they were presented something to take a look at.
On this one that I suggested, I understand what you're saying,
Sure.
but I think you're right. I mean, we need to kind of focus on the urgent things. This gentleman who runs the institute has a really, really cool perspective on demand management side, reducing the load, and using some new technologies to do that or drive it. We're seeing a lot of new technologies come out, and a lot of this stuff is more real-time monitoring of systems that you're using, so you can turn things off when the load's going to go up, so you don't need as much generation capability, right? So I thought that was kind of important. He's also a proponent of renewable energy, where you don't need expensive nuclear energy or all these other things. I think interesting, and I think this was sent out to the commission too, is Xcel is looking at this Form iron air battery, and they're gonna build a facility with that. It looks like a real feasible technology. If that's demonstrated, then I think this dispatchable energy thing could be put to bed, right? You just, you get these cheaper batteries. And what better place to do this than the Steel City in Pueblo, because it's rust, right? That's happening. You're going to reverse that process.
We did that in junior high. Remember you take the
on a potato?
Yeah.
So let me interrupt. So are we wanting to put this on the back burner a little bit, and we want to get the committees front and forward first, the next meeting? And again, a lot of things were mentioned. I'm assuming that each committee will kind of start to focus on what we're going to start with first. Maybe, I don't know, however you want to do it. But I think you're right. I think what we have here, the work that you've already laid out today, those are the most important things right now. And we can always have another meeting. Remember, we started off having 2 meetings a month. So we're not restricted to just having 1 meeting. But I would then propose that we follow up with each one of the committees. You have a chance to meet again for the next agenda, along with Public Works. And then also, if there's no more comments, Dave, you got like 5 minutes that you got a handout from Dave. And evidently his better half was the one that discovered or found it.
Thanks,
and,
I have to give my wife
everyone will have a chance to review it, and then we'll put that on the agenda for maybe 10-15 minutes for next meeting, okay?
Or down the road.
Yeah, but if you want to just give a 5-minute why you thought this was something to bring forward. And I'm going to hold you at 5 minutes.
I'll
okay.
Get to it, try and go even
okay.
less. Sheila discovered this, and once I looked at it, she said, oh, this might be useful for the committee. And it definitely is, I think, because it gives us an example of where a community stepped forward in many number of different ways, really went towards reducing energy load, making it more sustainable. As you'll read through there and see, the pages that I tabbed, one of them, it shows them they actually, well, the gentleman who was behind all this was Professor Orr. And I had emailed him last night. He got back in touch with me this morning, and then we actually talked today. And I explained to him what we were doing. So he is very supportive of it. He's also involved in another project, which we can talk about later, that is actually going on here in Colorado, and as well as Arizona, and the colleges here. But it lays out some of the stuff of how they approach going after it. And it is kind of a guide to how they did it. What I would like to do is, when I talk to him in the future, is ask him, as this went forward, because this was a project that was deadlined. I mean, it was, as you read through it, you'll see it was set to end at a certain time, and that was when they did. And it reflects everything that they accomplished within those number of years, about 8 years that they were doing this, which is pretty incredible. I want to ask him about, okay, on the other end of it, looking back, the summary of achievements, roadblocks, what we did, where we won, where we didn't win. And if I can get that information from him, then I'd include that next time.
Okay.
I don't know if down the future he might be an interesting person to talk to, but this part, he and his group are actually flying to Greece, involved in another part of what they're doing now, which is climate, democracy, and where it goes from there, and how the two are very closely intertwined.
So Alyssa, so we'll put about 10 minutes for the next meeting for any follow-up for anyone's when they've had a chance to take a look at it. And then I would ask each one of the committees if you would at least contact Alyssa and tell what you would like to have listed on the agenda that you're going to highlight during your presentation. If you focus on one of many things that you're talking about, let her know, then that's what we'll look forward to. And Andrew, thank you. And Joe, thank you. Laura, thank you. And Alyssa, thank you. Is there anybody else? I don't think up there, but, and Tom and Michael, thank you so much for, and you know, you're welcome every time. So yeah. Anyhow,
I thank everybody.
Yeah.
Steve, I was just going to say real quick that Laura kind of mentioned previously the request for the baseline information during the meeting here. I already sent out that request, so we'll see if we can get that data back. Hopefully by next meeting we can report back on what that baseline looks like for both Excel and Bike Hills.
Okay,
that's good.
We'll see if we get.
Okay, and thank you, Andrew. Alyssa, do you have any requests? You sure?
No.
Okay, you're the one controlling this, really. You're behind the scenes. You're the one. So, all right.
No.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We're adjourned. And anyone's welcome to stay. The guards won't kick you out.
They will. They'll come and get us. Alyssa starts moving us on, and
So there was a conversation earlier that